lot, someone posted on my Facebook page about sport jiu-jitsu and then self-defense jiu-jitsu. All right? How many of you would say you practice the sport jiu-jitsu, tournament jiu-jitsu, I should say? The tournament guy. All right? Your folks are, how many assume self-defense? Practice the self-defense side. And there's kind of an argument about that, tournament versus self-defense, and it gets kind of heated. And I just personally think, and I'm one of those guys that is kind of inclusive, I like no-gi as well, and I like the gi. I'm good with both of that. It's really good. I'm that kind of guy that represents both sides. Some people don't like that. They say, you got to take a stand, and you got to be like this, and why? When you could do, like no-gi, you could do no-gi, and then you could do gi. Start out with the gi, and then go to no-gi. Fantastic, I get to do both. That's cool. All right, but if you just do no-gi, hard to put the gi back on and go, right? I feel like you should be able to do both. Well, you know what? The self-defense side of it and the tournament side of it, you can do both of those. And I highly encourage you to be one of those people that will represent both of them. But you just got to know where you draw your personal line at. All right? And I'm going to pick on the self-defense side and the tournament side equally today, because that's the kind of guy I am. And now I'll alienate myself from both sides. That's typically how I operate. The tournament guys are always going, yeah, everything revolves around a tournament or a point. Like I'll do a crank on somebody and I'll demonstrate, yeah, but you can't use that at a tournament. That's the thing I'll hear all the time. You can't use that at a tournament. Like it has absolutely no use at all unless it's at a tournament. And that what happens is now we start to pick things out that have no use at the tournament, and they throw it aside, like I don't need to even learn any of that whatsoever. It's not that big of a deal. Well, what happens is that's the exact way that judo became a sport, right? Back in the late 1800s. And nothing wrong with judo. Judo is a fantastic sport, all right? Because they took away all the dangerous moves from jiu-jitsu and made judo fantastic. And you know what? Judo is one of the most popular sports in the world. And I'm totally cool with that, and thank God for judo. Because it's really helped, because jiu-jitsu died out and judo kept going on. And, at least people had, a resemblance of jiu-jitsu in society. Fantastic. But we're on the precipice of that happening again. You'll see that, the sport aspect of it. And I got to say, the IBJJF has made, become the dominant force for tournament jiu-jitsu. Now things are going out the door. You can't do a wrist lock. You can't do a heel hook. Because it's a dangerous move. Fantastic. I understand that. But we're at the same time going to alienate all of those self-defense people, and we're just going to have a sanitized version of jiu-jitsu where I say submission is the mission, but doing the points, getting your points and winning by an advantage or 2 points is the thing that they'll be just fine with. And I disagree with that. I don't think that's good. However, I take people to tournaments all the time, and I'd like to win by an advantage point too. Winning is the key right there. And it's about that game. All right? You go and you play the game. And if you win by an advantage point, awesome. But to be a world champion by winning by an advantage point, okay. But it'd be nice to submit, right? Then you have on the other side, you have the self-defense guys. And the self-defense guys, I'm a Pedro Sauer guy, self-defense guy, we're pretty self-defense all the way around. And I support that. I think that's pretty good because you need to be in a fight, all right? Jiu-jitsu is made to be in a combat situation. But you know what? That side has its problems too. All right? Because they all talk self-defense, but I don't see any punching going on. Right? And we do all our self-defense stuff, and there might be a punch, but you don't do it realistic. You're not wrestling and punching each other in the face, because that's a fight too, isn't it? People get into kind of a scuff, they're going to punch you in the face. Whole joke is how do you take a black belt down to a white belt? So you punch him once for a brown belt, punch him twice for a purple belt, right? And as self-defense guys, you can sit and live in this fantasy world of, yeah, we do self-defense at our sport, we don't do competition. Well, at the same time, you don't even practice any punches, you're not rolling and got the gloves on and starting to hit each other. I don't think that's self-defense. I don't think that is. All right? Oh, because you do the self-defense move, the Elio Gracie self-defense moves, that makes you a self-defense expert after that? but yet you guys don't do anything else but just roll. So we live in that kind of universe where you talk about, oh, how self-defense oriented you are. We don't do this. We don't do this for competition. We do it for self-defense. But at the same time, you don't practice self-defense the way a real fight would be. Right? Or is that code for, we don't do tournament jiu-jitsu, we do self-defense jiu-jitsu. And that must be code for, well, we just don't want to really push ourselves too much and get better and really make ourselves cutting edge. That way we can just sit and practice the same old crap that we practiced for the last 20 years and not get any better. Is that what that code is for? I mean, you know, is that what they're saying? And I just don't think that needs to be. So if you're a self-defense guy, why do you go to tournaments? The reason you go to tournaments is because you can push yourself. You can test yourself out against people outside of your school. And I think it's a very valuable thing for self-defense people to go to tournaments because I guess you could go to the bar and go get into a fight and kick the crap out of somebody, and that would, you know, and then typically go to jail. You know, and that's tough. So what do? You go and do, you know, your tournament, or you go do MMA. That's cool too. That's no problem. But then you're a tournament guy, that's self-defense. And who's going to get into a fight? Well, you're out and about, you know. And so you're doing all these, you know, you're doing all these, you're a tournament guy, and self-defense, you know, guys going, hey man, what are you looking at? Nothing, I want in trouble. And he goes, well, how about if I kick your ass right now? And you go, okay, you can try, and then you jump guard. Out in the street. And I want to urge you, if you're a tournament guy, do not jump guard out in the street, right? Whatever you do. Okay? Try not to do that, because it's not probably the best self-defense move that you can do, right? So as a tournament guy, you should be, you should have the self-defense there. Because, a lot of people in your schools would like to learn the self-defense, people grabbing you and stuff like that. And Professor Sauer always says that the self-defense move in Jiu-Jitsu is about a homage to Elio Gracie. All right? We're paying homage to Elio because he taught those moves. And I say, you bet, let's pay homage to Elio Gracie. Great man. I totally appreciate what he and his brothers have done for our sport. My question is that how the self-defense is going to stay for another 200 years? We're doing those exact same moves, but we make the ground a lot better in Jiu-Jitsu, right? But the stand-up moves, grabbing, choking and stuff, those are going to stay the same forever, and we're never going to change those and make those better if something else comes along, even though the ground has improved too. That's my question. Probably people are not going to like me saying that kind of stuff, but I'm about improving, all right? I want to improve. I want to be better. I want to be the best jiu-jitsu guy that I possibly can be, and I'm always questioning things. How can we do things better, all right? I love the Model T. Great car. I appreciate that car being invented because it brought, but Ferraris are pretty cool. Got a lot of nicer cars today, right? I'd rather take an airplane today than I would back in the 20s and 30s. Things can improve, right? Society improves. Or our jiu-jitsu has to improve. But it can't just go one direction. We go and make a game out of jiu-jitsu. I'm not saying that, right? But if we're going to have it for realistic combat, we need to take it as a realistic combat kind of situation too. We can't just pretend and say, oh yeah, I do self-defense all the time. That's what we do at our school, is self-defense. Although, I never got punched or anything like that, but I'm confident that if that's the case, what's the difference between the guy who's doing the tournament jiu-jitsu and the guy who's doing self-defense? If we're not punching each other, if we're not putting on the gloves and working that angle as well, I think the gi is a great self-defense tool. Guys wear coats. Guys wear pants all the time, all right? Putting on the gloves, going for it. I think that's good. We need to do that at our schools. But the divide that we have, we're this way, I don't think so. I like to be inclusive. I like to say, I'm going to do both. Because I know it could benefit our jiu-jitsu both ways, and I think people should do both. You use it for self-defense, but can you go to a tournament? That's fantastic. Do you need to get caught up in the minutiae of the tournament completely? That's not where I'm at. You make up your own decision. All right, so I hope my meager attempt to define where I feel a tournament and self-defense is at least makes you think a little bit about it. Because these absolute attitudes of, I'm a self-defense guy, tournament guy, and self-defense, who's going to do that crap? Just like we can do gi and no gi. Alright, we can do both. It's totally cool. And that's what I represent as a person. And a lot of people don't like hearing that, and I don't really care. Because I'm just after the truth. Just after wanting to push it and get better. Alright? If I could represent one thing in Jiu-Jitsu, it's a guy who's got the attitude of constantly evolving and improving in Jiu-Jitsu, while at the same time upholding the traditions that we've set in the past as well. Because we can have both of those. Alright, we can have both of those. Alright, let's get going. Let's rock and roll. Today,